Hey guys, here today with Monty Buntin at the NCHA Futurity 2024. Monty, how's it all treating you?
How's it going? Well, the futurity itself didn't treat me great this year. I had what I thought was a really special horse and had some tough luck in the second go-round. And that's extremely disappointing, but fortunately I was in the Open World Finals as well with another great horse, and I had a great show there. And I've had some success at the sales, the Western Bloodstock, and so yeah, it's been all right. We always want to make the finals. It's always disappointing when you don't, or the semis at least. But that's what makes it feel so good when you do, because it's hard to get done.
How long have you been in the industry?
I've been in the horse training. That's always been a part of my life. But in terms of cutting, probably I would say it's 15 or 16 years. When I was about 14 or 15, maybe, I went to work for the first cutting horse trainer, which was Salvador Cabral, Chava, as everybody knows him. And been pretty die-hard focused. It's been my lifestyle since then.
So you live in California?
I live in Northern California. I worked my way out there throughout different stages of my later teenage years, working for different trainers. I worked for Tim Smith, and that's what got me to California. We've been there since 2009, I think.
Gotcha. Wife and children?
Yeah, my wife and I, we're going to celebrate 17 years this coming year. One boy, Riggs, he's 5 years old, and he rides with us every day and turns back. Been started to show. He showed 4 or 5 times now. Got through his last couple runs, so he's a die-hard cutter. He loves it.
How's that feeling, being a trainer and then having your son start to come into the role of working with you?
It's unbelievable. It just becomes the most important thing in your life, to prioritize him and just see how he develops. And I mean, I certainly don't push him to do cutting or train horses or anything like that, but he, at this stage of his life, he loves it, probably because I love it so much and because his mom loves it. But it changes you too. It helps you look at yourself from the outside more so. For a number of years without a kid, my wife and I think we were married 11 years without any kids, and I really never did look at myself from an outside point of view, and that's amazing how what kids do in making you realize some things, flaws and good things.
Right.
Yeah.
He's very vocal too.
Yeah, Riggs.
Yeah.
He's a cheerer and he's a good kid, man. He's really a great kid. His mom's done a great job.
That's awesome. So, where'd you get your start?
Start in cutting or start in training horses? I had horses and rode since the time there's pictures of me on my first horse when I was 2 years old. And my mom and dad bought me a little mare called Blondie, and she was a real old, used up kind of just a ranch horse type thing. And I got to go on cattle drives and stuff with my dad when I was a kid, and just became extremely passionate about it. So I lived and breathed it as long as I can remember. And there was a trainer, Ned Lee, that lived not far away from where I live, maybe a mile or two. He's our closest neighbor, but but it wasn't that far. And I would go clean stalls, throughout 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that kind of thing. And I started when I was 11. I started my first training business, and I had a sign, and I did some clinics, and colt starting clinics. I did my first one when I was 11, and I've just always been extremely passionate about it. I've never really put my attention to anything else. I didn't ever think that I'd be able to be a performance horse trainer at that time, because it just seemed out of reach. Didn't seem like something that was in the cards for me. But it's just amazing, when you keep your attention to your goal and with the pursuit of accomplishing it. And I'm amazed at how far the horses and the lifestyle has taken me. Not that it's anything special, but it's certainly special to me.
Right. What was a turning point where you felt like you could get into the performance horse industry?
No, there was no turning point. It just was all a surprise. I mean, every time I feel like looking back and realizing sort of how it worked is I would always pretend to be a little more than what I was, and try to apply myself in the ways that I saw people that were a little bit better than me. And then it's amazing that it just sort of happens naturally, and I think it was a real blessing to accidentally do that. I had a lot of people that thought I was crazy, but I only paid attention to the few people that believed me.
Right.
I dropped out of school early in the 8th grade, and left home, moved to Texas to work for a guy by the name of Nancy James that was connected in the rodeo world and some of the performance horse world. And when I got there, I just pretended to be a little bit better than I was, and got around the right people, and it just really evolved for me. And as I've grown older and looked back on it, I see that that it was that pursuit that got me there. But at the time, I never really thought I'd get there. I just really liked the feeling of acting like it, So it's just funny to look back on it that way now. Like I said, I probably would never thought of that without kids, but I think about his directions and what he puts his attention to, and what I put my attention to as an example, and those kind of things now. So, that's a short version, kind of. But
So you left home. Where was home?
Home was Paulden, Arizona.
Okay.
I grew up in Paulden, Arizona. It's kind of it's really, and it's a little more developed now. I think they got a Dollar Tree, but at the time we moved out there, it was pretty desolate. It was out in the middle of nowhere. Be between Prescott, Arizona, and Flagstaff, I guess you'd maybe say. But it was a desert community, where everybody had a lot of land. Or we had 10 acres, but a lot of modular homes, and a lot people sort of had ranchettes that they could afford, and it was the cost of living wasn't as high out there as it was closer to Prescott or to Flagstaff, and a lot of horses and that kind of stuff out there.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard your whole story, and I probably have room for a little bit of short side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I like to talk about these things for a reason. My story is dynamic in how I came up, and things that I've done in my life, and people inspired me, and the things that challenged me. What were some of those things you growing up kind of pushed you or hurt, not hurt you, but that pushed you to do things different because you didn't like the way it was being done? Because I say that a lot about there's a lot of things that changed me. They weren't necessarily good things, but it made me not want to be that thing. So
I understand the question. Now I want to hear your story. I've heard mine before. I want to hear yours.
So I grew up in Mesquite, Texas, and we moved when I was 11 years old to a little rural town called Roy City, Texas, which is not a little town no more. My mother sold insurance to farmers and ranchers, and I was a little hellion. So about 12, I started pushing a lawnmower around, weed eater, mowing yards, just bored. And she got to talking to one of the farm ranchers and said, is there any way you could take my son and help raise him up? I didn't have a father. So that guy picked me up, took me to work, brought me back home, and because she couldn't afford to get the gas and all that stuff to do that. And then I just worked harder and harder. There's so many situations I can sit here and blame life on, and I just didn't. I just did life.
Yeah.
And whatever it threw at me, I just went at it harder. But this guy taught me a lot of patience. He taught me construction and the horse world at the same time. And ultimately, it's brought me where I am today. So I worked for him until 9/11 happened. When 9/11 happened,
Oh, wow.
When 9/11 happened, he was in the satellite for the cell phone industry. So when that happened, his business went down. And when it did, I was the first one to go. So and when I did, that's when I started After P. And that's the short version of everything. But
I understand
the dynamics of all that.
That's incredible to hear that. And I love the saying that all is relative, meaning, everybody's got a story, and it's the pursuit of success, it sounds like was what your heart desired, essentially, and if that's the same, what you kept your attention on as you went through the trials, and everybody has those, whether they come from something really good and healthy or something that was a little rough. The feeling is comparable in terms of adversities and setbacks and all those kind of things. Everybody has those. And they feel that mine may feel the same. My times might have been different than yours, but I'm a student of that, of the pursuit of success, and I love to hear those kind of stories, and I love to hear that what you think was the reasons why it went well. I mean, I know you fairly well from just hanging around here and having a drink, and what you've done for the Lopers and stuff like that. So clearly you're a good and generous person. And I had a pretty good feeling you were self-made, but that's a really cool story.
Right.
And I guess mine was somewhat similar. I essentially lost my dad when I was 9. Had a somewhat of a broken relationship from then on, and there's a lot to that story and a lot to the development of that. I didn't have a dad. I didn't grow up with a dad, and so the reasons that it's very important to me to pursue or study or whatever you want to call being a great father, a good dad, is very passionate about. But to answer your question earlier about what drives you, what drives me or pulls me towards pursuing goals, I read it somewhere that in order to really be successful, you have to be chasing something, and something's got to be chasing you. And so I think we've pretty much already covered that answer. What chases me is poverty and failure, and what drives me is that vision that I've always had in my mind, or I feel like God's kind of had in my heart, to succeed. And my passion's always been to be successful, and my love was for horses. So I think that to be a champion, or to go when I go down, or whenever my days are over, for my son and whoever I could have inspired, is probably what I would like to. That's what pulls me. What drives me is the fear of.
It's your grit.
Yeah.
More or less. It's your grit. So I hear a common thing that I've talked to different people, and coming from raising kids and all that stuff, when we're on the road so hard, so heavy, you're doing the training, I'm doing the construction stuff. That's the hardest thing about being a father to kids, in my opinion, because especially coming from when you didn't have one.
Yeah.
And it drives you even harder to make sure every little minute means something.
Yeah.
When you're with them. And I think that's the stuff that when you're on the road, it's hard. People don't understand that. It's a lot of sacrifice to that.
Yeah, it's such a balance. It's such a something that just weighs on me and does sort of torture me a little bit. Is what is the balance to that? What is most important? I was really struggling about 3 years ago at a show in Las Vegas because I wasn't doing worth a shit, and my family wasn't there, and I was really fighting my head, and Taryn Rice, who has some young kids, and understood. I think he could tell that it was really bugging me, and he came over to me and just put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Hey, I want you to remember something. The worst thing your son could ever see is a lazy dad."
That's true.
So that really helped me and made me feel better, and I think I consider that a lot. But what is the balance?
Right.
Because presence is extremely important, and I know that. Through my teenage years, and I got married real young. Tess and I got married when I was 17, just barely 17, and she was 19 or 20, and my poor wife, she's a wonderful person, and but the some of the trials that we've had has been from lack of understanding of how to handle things, from lack of leadership and lack of the skills it takes to get through hard times in life and those kind of things, and understanding the difference between being a failure and having failures. There's a large difference, and that's been a hard thing for me to separate in my life. So it's important to me to be setting a good example, and that's probably the hardest thing for me.
Yeah, and I'm 46 years old, and I fight demons that I'm starting to understand them a little better. But it was when you grow up without a father or somebody to give you a path, there's still great people around that inspired me, but there's just things you've never had to deal with in situations. Mm-hmm. So you have to figure it out yourself. I make a big mess. And I'm like, and I look back, I said I could have handled that different, but I didn't know how.
Yeah.
I just made it a war. It wasn't an award that needed to be had. And fighting myself more or less.
Yeah, the way I've verbalized that to anybody is it's like the feeling that you just, all it is a feeling. It's really an illusion, but the feeling that you're fighting resistance all the time. It's not that something or somebody is trying to keep it from working. And the understanding that that's not true,
Right.
and that everything is for you and everything you wants you, and that, you know, to be able to believe that, see that in your mind through adversity or failures is probably a bigger challenge if you don't have the set of tools or skills that you learn by example watching somebody else. In our case, it'd be a father figure, and I want to be clear. I mean no disrespect to anybody that's in that situation or my own dad. I mean everybody. I don't think anybody really ever does anything with bad intentions. I don't think that people just make choices in life, and you know I'm not bad mouthing any father that ever, you know, didn't do the job he thought he should. I don't think any of us do really.
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear about that, but. Dads, that we all make mistakes, you know, and it's not
purposely to
not
hurt
on purpose to hurt anybody.
Right.
Yeah,
I get it, exactly.
Yeah.
And I had to watch when I started being out in public more and started talking about my story and all that. I had to work on when I talked about I grew up poor, single mom. I didn't realize it until I started listening to it, and I said my mother worked 3 jobs. My mom did everything she was supposed to do. She just the world was fighting her. She had 2 kids to take care of. I felt like when I look back at some of the earlier stuff I talked and told my story with, I'm like, that's not giving my mom no credit.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm taking from her, and it's, by no means do I mean it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not a professional spokesperson, so I just talk.
Yeah.
You know, and then, but I look back, I try to clean it up. It's like, listen,
Yeah.
my mom, I wouldn't be here where I am today if it wasn't for her.
And I could say the same. I mean, that's always like you get it, and anybody could, you know, I don't care what your story is, and if you want to talk about the struggles of being successful, you know, there's reasons for it, and people that love you are part of the reason, good and bad. And I mean, you know, my mom is a wonderful person. You know, she made a lot of mistakes. I mean, and they haunt her now, but her intention to be a great mother and her love and support was that kept me together. Her and my grandma, you know, the belief that they had in what I was doing. I think they were probably talking themselves into it, you know. But they refused to think that all the mistakes I was probably making was a bad idea. They just supported it. So, you know, my mom and I had a long talk the other day on the phone, and we don't talk. I'm not good about keeping up with family. I'm terrible about it. But we had a long talk the other day about all that kind of stuff, and about, you know, how you know, some of her mistakes led me to the success that I have, and without her making some of those, I may not be where I am today.
Sure.
You know, so
Create a roadmap of where you're at.
yeah.
So off the personal stuff for a little bit.
Yeah, we kind of got a little deep there for a second.
So are you already laying out the roadmap for next year's futurity?
Man, that is what we do. The minute it goes bad here, I immediately started planning for next year's futurity, and this is the golden egg. I mean, of any cutting horse trainer, this is the optimum level. It's what we want to accomplish to win the futurity. Even to make the futurity finals is an extremely special feeling, and it's a feather in your cap and a notch in your belt, and all the things that the cowboy way or our culture dreams of. So immediately I went out in the second round the next morning. I was working my 2-year-olds at 6 o'clock out in the practice pens, and trying to prepare for the small futurities in the fall and the big futurity here. And obviously there's a lot more to our industry than just the futurity, but when you hear it, you just can't help but just imagine what it would be like if you could accomplish that. So I was able to go over to Western Bloodstock, and very grateful for some amazingly supportive customers, and bought some 2-year-olds privately, and I have a really nice string of 2-year-olds at home, and my crew, all the people that work for me, and we just sort of re-energized and started getting excited about next year when we went out this year. Because what else can you do? I mean, you know,
go on.
Yeah, get back to work.
Yes, sir. You know, I didn't know this, but I believe this is true. But from what I understand, is this is the highest paid Triple Crown event in the horse industry.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea that. I thought horse racing was, and they might have upped it.
Yeah, I can't confirm that it pays more than horse racing, but at one point years ago, somebody told me that it's funny that this is the second highest paying horse sport, period, and that was second to horse racing. This is 10, 15 years ago. And the only reason that it's maybe not as widely known throughout the general world is because you can't bet on it. It's a judged event.
I didn't think about that.
It's a judged event.
Wow.
You can't bet on it. So that's the only reason it doesn't have maybe the same broad popularity that horse racing does. It's not because watching horses race each other is funner than cutting, because we all know that's not true.
Right.
It's it's the lack of ability to be involved.
Got you. If you had to look back at yourself at 18 years old, or you're talking to an 18-year-old, what advice would you give them?
If you know what you want, which you should, and if you don't, you should think about it. Just get up every day and do the work. Just stop thinking that it's not going to work.
Right.
That's been my biggest struggle, and I think it is for anybody trying to be successful. Just get up and do the work, because I look back at all the nights I lost sleep and all the times that I probably made family and friends and people around me worry about me and be miserable because I was so scared that it wasn't going to work.
Right.
Everything
will always work itself out. And when people tell me that, I believe it more now. Mm-hmm. But in my younger years, I'd like, whatever. That don't make any sense. You're not in my battles right now.
Yeah. You don't understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I just think that if you can see it in your mind, you'll hold it in your hands if you get up and do the work. And I'm not even saying you have to. I hate it when people say, "Oh, you outwork them." What time you get up in the morning has nothing to do with my life, my journey, or God's plan for me. It has nothing to do with it. I think you got to do the work that needs done. Whatever should have been done yesterday is over. That's done with. Whatever needs to get done tomorrow, there's time for that tomorrow. Do the work.
Right.
You don't have to get up a little bit earlier than your competitor. They're not your competitor. Those kind of things. Like, just get up and do the work every day. And if a person could have so much confidence to say when there's adversity that where it almost energized them, and you think to yourself, I wonder why. Because I think that every time I've had something that I felt was a real setback in my life, there's been such a wonderful outcome, and I can trace it back to the adversity. And once you realize, it's kind of like this year not making the finals. It's been hard for me because I'm a poor sport, but I had a very special horse. I thought maybe the best chance I ever had at doing really well here. And, I just got to ask myself, I wonder why. And I think I learned some critical things that would be hard to explain, but about showing and preparing, and learned some stuff about myself that I didn't realize I didn't have under control. I mean, I'm a huge student of showmanship. I don't think there's really anybody that thinks more about it than me. And I do clinics, and I try to teach showmanship, and I study how I show, and I'm following all the steps and execution that I teach people, but it's amazing the little things, and I think there's something real critical I learned that may cause me to win the fraternity someday.
Sure.
I don't know if that's what the reason for the adversity was, or the setback, but there will be a reason, and something good will come of it. And if you could realize that as a young person, I think it could be a powerful tool and speed up the journey for you.
Right. Well, you're doing something cool tonight. Aren't you doing like a commentary?
I'm going to do the commentation, for the finals, and I really enjoy doing those. I've done a few of them, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to sit there from that vantage point, and especially a night like this. I've never gotten to do the fraternity finals. I wished I didn't have the time.
Right.
But I'm very grateful that NCHA wants me to be a part of that. So that's really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Monty, we're going to wrap this up. I want to tell you this. I think you're a great trainer. You're a great individual.
Thank you.
And I know we've become to meet each other more and more, but I'm saying I do watch you. And I do know a lot of people that talk good things about you. So
well, hey, I really appreciate that. Right. Hell, I appreciate that. Yeah. No, I'm very grateful. It's really hard to remember. I was talking, I think, Morgan Cromer or somebody about this the other day, just to remember that this is about the journey. It's not about the not about the results necessarily, particularly not daily and all the time. I mean, it's we're here. All the people that I love and respect, and my heroes are showing tonight, and some of them showed last night, and just to be here. I mean, it's just such a blessing to even be at this level in my career, to where, there's some of these people that know me and I know them, and I'm enjoying, this lifestyle, and my son's getting to grow up in this. I would have loved to have grown up like this, So it is about the journey. That is hard to remember.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Take care.
Each and every Tuesday, catch a new episode of Grit Branded as we dive into stories from all walks of life, in the hopes of you discovering what your grit is.